They call him Seatin, the man of legends.
Hello and welcome to an exciting warrior PvP video. Today we're going to be having a look at a bit of warlord PvP that I've been doing. I very much like the warlord spec in 3.0. I've played Paragon in PvP, I've played Tempest in PvP. Paragon is brilliant for the burst rate, but outside of the alacrity block, the damage is just so lackluster. Whereas on my warlord, as you will be able to see on this video, even outside of that King of the Hill spamming block, I am totally wrecking face everywhere, and it is absolutely brilliant, and I just love it so much. So I know a lot of other YouTubers and people on the forums have kind of been talking about the state of warrior PvP and how warriors actually, you know, are in comparison to other classes. And to be honest, I just wanted to come in and interject that I don't think they are that bad at all. Like, they make them out to be just really terrible and very crippled in comparison to the three quote-unquote mega classes, which are Pyromancer, Inquisitor, and Ranger. Now, I do understand those classes are very strong in terms of their range capability, but in small scale, just like specs like Warlord are still kicking some serious ass, as you will be able to see, even in Carfen, which is kind of the next clip that I have to show you. If you do have kind of those dedicated heals, if you've, you know, a couple of physicians on your team, just chuck them a cheeky little whisper and say, you know, I'm gonna go in deep, do you mind covering my ass? There is also an absolutely amazing Paragon Void Knight spec out at the moment. I actually haven't learned how to play that, but I've seen a couple of top EU PvP warriors using it, and they literally tear through my Pyromancer, and they heavily rival with my Inquisitor in 1v1. And for something to even get close to an Inquisitor at the moment, because Inquisitor is really OP, especially with sort of the gear and equipment and enchants that I've put into that character, it just makes it godlike in terms of its power. So yeah, for a warrior to actually rival that in kind of like a 1v1 or small scale scenario, it is just ridiculous. So yeah, there is a Void Knight Paragon spec that I'd love to figure out. I mean, people are keeping this a pretty big secret, so, you know, I'm gonna have to play around with the old talent calculators. But once I figure it out, I'm more than happy to bring it to you lot and teach you the ways of the Void Knight Paladin. So Void Knight Paragon PvP, even, that's the one. So, quite a few people have sort of asked, how has warrior PvP changed and what has been added to the specs via the Masteries, etc. Now, one of the core things that changed with Warlord was the health and overall survivability of the build took a bit of a hit, but in return they got a very slight damage increase overall. Now, granted, it doesn't make it rear ahead by like a super amount, but still, you know, it's pretty damn sweet. And then you have additional stuff in the Masteries. The two core things that you get from the Masteries are probably building rage. So this is a kind of debuff on your target, where every time you hit them they get one stack of it, and then at 3 stacks it explodes, dealing a large amount of ethereal damage. Ethereal damage is totally unmitigated damage. So on most targets, if my kind of building rage crits, it's gonna hit about 5k, and if it doesn't crit, then it's probably gonna hit about 3 to 3.5k, which is still fairly decent, and that's going to be proccing like every 4.5 seconds in my my warlord build. So that is really cool, and helps with that additional burst at sort of times when you're just, you know, spamming that King of the Hill, and you have the battlefield experience up, and you're really trying to get the deeps down. Now, the level 65 mastery, you actually have two kind of different choices here. You have power manipulation, which can add even more burst into the warlord rotation. That basically is a debuff that you can either put on the target or yourself. It's always best to make a cast at self macro and put it on yourself, and this can give you even more burst. You'll see I actually don't use that though. So in terms of damage that I'm dealing, this build could be even more overpowered than it is. And having a look at sort of the overall single target damage done and the killing blows, I think you guys are going to be quite impressed with the two Warfronts. But this build can actually do even more burst damage, which is just crazy. So you can do that, or you can actually get a power variation. Now, power variation is like an ability that can either be cast on a target to deal AoE damage, or cast on yourself to restore 50% of your maximum health over 3 seconds. What I do is I make, once again, a cast at self macro, and use this to give me an additional form of survivability. So if stuff is getting too deep, what I'll usually do is I'll pop a no permission to die. I'll sort of use the drop back. You can get an additional drop back from Tempest for sort of a super retreat if you so wish so, and then you quickly line of sight whoever you're fighting, channel that power variation, you get 50% of your maximum health back, and you can jump right back in. And it is just crazy how good that tactic actually is, you know, especially for people who may not have sort of the ability to heal. Like, for example, you know, when you're fighting a Pyromancer, usually a lot of them spec into heavy damage, so, you know, if you can get those essential interrupts on sort of their Flame Volley and Fusillade, and then maybe if they're dealing a bit more damage on with their other abilities, and they've got you low, you can just quickly drop back, line of sight them quickly, power variation, heal back almost to full health, and then just totally run back in and nuke the absolute crap out of them. One of the really cool things about power variation is that the ticks of it can actually crit. So if they don't crit, they heal you for about, well, it's all dependent on your health, but if they don't crit, they heal you for about 10k, but if they do crit, they're going to heal you for about 20k. So if you're really lucky, you can literally get 100% health out of power variation, which is really awesome. So I absolutely love that. Apart from in regards to actually how Warlord is played, it hasn't changed too much since kind of the launch of Rift Nightmare Tide. The kind of core and key differences are that kind of your Piercing Thrust and Wave of Steel are now on the global cooldown, but they kind of work slightly differently. They're very hard-hitting attacks that basically deal like double damage if used within 6 seconds of a finisher. So they're kind of weaved into the rotation as something that you quickly want to pop out after you've just cast a finisher. For example, like if you put your surges up, then just, you know, quickly throw in a Piercing Thrust, and it's going to deal heavy damage. Granted, the damage still isn't as high as a King of the Hill or Decisive Strike, so, you know, it's going to be one of those things that you want to use when you have both King of the Hill and Decisive Strike off cooldown. But then again, these aren't abilities that you can macro and expect to play efficiently with, so you do need to have them on a separate button. And you'll see, you know, I've moved my Piercing Thrust sort of to my, what is it, minus subtraction key, which thanks to my Razer Naga mouse I can hit quite easily and don't have too much problem, you know, sort of dealing with the rotation. One of the more annoying things though about playing a melee class, and this is mainly only for sort of European players at peak times, is the fact that ability lag still does unfortunately exist, especially just it's around those peak times. I mean, if you're playing any time outside of kind of 5 PM to 10 PM UK time, you're not really going to feel that much ability lag, but once you get onto kind of that peak 5-hour time frame, then melee really is going to be a horrible option to play in PvP. So you're probably going to want to switch over to Tempest or another one of your sort of range classes during that period. But outside of those peak times, it isn't too bad to play at all, and I find it really enjoyable. I mean, the really awesome thing about Warlord is it still has a lot of the mobility, so you can quickly, you know, get from target A to target B. As you can see, what I did a few seconds ago is I quickly dropped back and then charged straight on a target, which meant I could sort of close the gap between me and him very quickly. And adding to that, you have I believe it's 2 additional charges. You also have a run speed increase buff, and then you can maybe, you know, put like 6 points in Tempest to get that additional drop back, which can just be amazing for closing gaps against range players. And that is very, very awesome. Adding to that, battlefield experience is really good for dealing with pyromancers, because when you use battlefield experience, then your charge basically does not have a cooldown. So you can just like literally just ram the pyromancers if they try to root you or stun you. But generally speaking, a good pyromancer will be quite good at pyromancers have a lot of CC breaks, so they're quite hard to lock down 1v1, especially if they are using the, what is it? I believe it is 61 Pyromancer, 13 Stormcaller, and 2 Dominator. That is just a godlike spec at the moment. I don't really see anybody advocating or using that spec, but it's just amazing because with the 2 points in Dominator, you get the knockback, and with the Stormcaller, you get sort of the Ride the Wind, which is a 50% sprint for 10 seconds, and you can use that like every 20 seconds, and also it's a break free as well, so it breaks you out of the CC. So adding to Flicker and also the standard break free that everybody has, yeah, Pyromancer's pretty OP at getting away from stuff at the moment, which is crazy. So what I really wanted to get across from this video is that warriors still have plenty of options in PvP. They're very viable, they're very needed. Warrior Healing Liberator is just some really, really good stuff in large-scale PvP at the moment. I might do a few Liberator Healing PvP videos if anybody wants to see them. But literally, I've been healing. Sometimes I run around with my friends from Barry McGuigan, and they have kind of a 4-man pre-made DPS, and I will heal them. And I don't really have any problems keeping all of them up solo as a Liberator. So I find that if you play Liberator well, then you can be a very, very valuable asset in group PvP. And especially as Conquest opens up, maybe in the next month or two, Liberators are going to become even more valuable. So I definitely suggest Warriors do have a very good place in PvP at the moment. And that place is really to be a badass, push the front lines, deal the heavy damage, and you can do that with so many specs. Warlord Paragon, the Void Knight Paragon spec, Warlord Paladin even is a good spec still to use. There are just many, many specs, and you kind of want to get in there deep and have, you know, make sure the healers know that you are going to the front line, you're going to be taking that damage, and thus you need the support from them. And that's kind of the best thing you can do, is communicate, because if they don't know that you're going to rush in and take all this damage, then they're not going to be ready to heal you, and thus you will die. So just let them know that you're going to go in deep, and that you're going to be taking a lot of damage, and that, you know, they should spam top you up or give you all their buffs to ensure that you don't die. So that's pretty much it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed watching it. Sorry if I do sound a little groggy today. I am still very, very ill. But I thought I'd just do this quick video just because I haven't done a video in ages. And also, Warrior PvP is awesome. Give it a go. Let me know your thoughts and experiences. Take care and have a great day.